Hey everybody, this is Paul with Modern DriveLine. We're on video number 2 about drive shafts. In this video we're going to focus on our steel drive shafts offered by South Bay DriveLine. Modern DriveLine does offer carbon fiber and aluminum drive shafts as well. From Steve at South Bay, you can see here we're feeling some love. He sent me a little unicorn sticker, cat riding a unicorn. Everybody needs one of those. That will go to one of the grandkids, of course. All right, so we're going to cover some do's and some don'ts and some how-tos on drive shafts. First off, let's start here at the front. Slip yoke. Not all slip yokes are the same size for, say, 28 spline, 27 spline, 30 and 31 spline. So it is important to match your dimension of your tube to the bushing in the transmission. Minimum engagement for safety is 2.5 inches. You can see here by the wear mark that this is the end of our tail shaft bushing, and 2.5 inches is covered, as you can see. Our next movement here is on this line, which is our seal. So that leaves about 1 inch of slip total from the back of the cap to where the seal is, which is on this transmission where the end of the main shaft is as well. So 1 inch of slip, 2.5 inches minimum here. Next up, we're going to talk about cap size. Cap size, you cannot always use the inside of this to the inside of this to measure for your cap. Sometimes this opening is larger than the actual cap diameter, so it is best to take your calipers, turn them over, and hug the cap on the inside to get your dimension. In this case, we are just over 1.062. We're going to call that an 1 1/16 cap. That's pretty common for 1310 size U-joints, which, by the way, are measured from cap to cap. Outside of cap to outside of cap, not outside of slip yoke. So if you were to reduce a little bit on that, you would see that our drive shaft U-joint size is about 3.25 inches. 1310 series U-joints, as an example, are 3.25 by 1 1/16 cap or 1 1/8 cap. We're going to show you that right now. It is important to measure both sides of any U-joint, the pinion side in this case, and the tube side here. And in the front, of course, is the slip yoke and the tube. As you can see here, our cap is larger than what is in the tube. That's because we have 1 1/8 caps on our pinion. It's important to know how to measure these differently, and you'll see that on our drive shaft worksheet. Okay, back up to the front. We're going to talk about angles of drive shafts. You can use an app downloaded from tremic.com to put an app on your phone to check working angles of your U-joints for the slip yoke, the tube, and the pinion. And they're all measured from the same side of any type of measuring device. Here we have a standard leveling type protractor. When you hang it just right, it has a bubble and it just goes back and forth. Any protractor that you use, it is important to always use the same side of the protractor when taking your measurement, and that includes your phone. And you always read a drive shaft. It goes 1, 2, and then 3 for the pinion. You always take it from the same side. Never reverse it. When you're measuring for parallelism and you want to use, say, this edge of the slip yoke to take your measurement, it is important to make sure that that it is a machined edge. As you can see here, we do have some machined edge here, but not all slip yokes have parallel machined edges. So you do want to make sure you take a dimension at this edge and this edge. If they are parallel, then you can use this machined surface to take your measurement for your slip yoke. Then, of course, you measure your tube. We're assuming that your tube is in good shape and it doesn't jump rope all on its own. And then, of course, your pinion yoke. That's a little more difficult. For the pinion yoke, you would use a socket. Make sure your socket is in good shape and it's also parallel. And you would center it as best as you can on the cup, and then you would put the other side, of course, against your measuring device to check your angle. You can do the same thing here if you don't have a parallel machined edge on this edge and this edge of your slip yoke. You can remove the clip as shown here, and you can put your socket in that location to check that one. It is important that you put your clips back in the same location they came out of if you're either changing a U-joint or servicing or greasing, because these clips, as manufactured and from the drive shaft supplier / builder, can be different thicknesses, and they use different thicknesses to make sure that the U-joint is centered in as square as possible, which helps with balance. So if you are servicing any of your drive shaft needs, make sure you measure your clips, and if they are different thicknesses, note where they came from, and then of course you'll have to do your check once everything is installed. All right, drive angles. Drive angles on U-joints are very important. Words you will hear us use are equal and opposite, between 1 and 3 degrees. We are going to show you some exaggerated angles so you understand this. So let's say your drive shaft is in a classic Ford vehicle or a Pro Street vehicle, and your rear end center lives higher than the output shaft of the transmission. You're going to have an angle like this on the front, and on the back you're going to have an angle like this. In this installation, the drive shaft would run uphill, so it'd be down on the front and go uphill on the back. These angles of course are exaggerated because it's obviously more than between 1 and 3 degrees, but some drive shafts will travel downhill, in which case you'll see this. You cannot have your slip yoke like this and the rear U-joint like this. This is what we call jump roping. Jump roping means the U-joints are not running symmetrically with each other, and that will be a problem, and it will always vibrate, so do check that. All right, we've covered everything on the front that we're going to address in this video. Back here, we're going to talk about the U-joint cap. There have been instances where people have taken things apart, serviced things, and put them back together, only to find that we have a problem. The problem is this. This little washer right here lives in the bottom of this cup. As you can see, it has, this particular one has 3 little slots, is made of plastic, and it is intended to distribute grease to the bearings back and forth so that it will lubricate properly. This can be stuck to this side, and if you take the other cap off and move it to the other side, you may end up with 2 of these on one side and none on the other. That will cause your drive shaft to run elliptically. You'll see that in the other video that we posted as well. All right, so South Bay DriveLine has supplied us a new steel drive shaft for our project vehicle, which in this case again is my 67 Falcon, and I asked him to paint it green. The reason we're painting it green is just for inspiration for me to do something with my car and painting it. We have upgraded to a 1330 size U-joint, which is 3 5/8 inches dimension cap to cap. Remember, we talked about not measuring the outside of the weld yoke or the outside of a pinion yoke, but it must be on the actual cap. And as you can see here, the cap actually has a smaller circumference on the yoke itself, which holds the cap in position on this in this video. All right, you can also see here that we have a greasable U-joint. Be careful on these. There are some cast crap out there, and they are not all created equal. In this instance, we have a cold forged U-joint in 1330 greasable. Plenty strong enough for what I'm going to be doing, and is made to stand up to the rigors of everything that is allowable for a 1330 size U-joint. Again, this comes from South Bay. Steve over there will hook you up with any color you want. If you can call us up and say, hey, I need a steel drive shaft for my car, surprise me. Be careful, because you may end up with something that looks like unicorn fodder with a rainbow sticker on it. All right, hope this video helps you. Call us if you need any help and support for drive shaft information or ordering a drive shaft. Modern DriveLine, 208-453-9800. Thank you very much.